Welcome one and all to another one of Nathan Bell's excellent commentary videos. Give it a like, give it a subscribe. Make sure you like Nathan's YouTube channel, his Facebook page, get around the social media. Today, Nate wants to continue talking about some personal stuff, and he's going to talk about his mum, Paula.
Yeah, well, today I'm just going to talk about my mother a bit and tell you a bit about my mother. My mother, for the first few years of my life, raised me as a single mother. She had to flee domestic violence. She had a pretty bad run with domestic violence with my father, who I've never met. So, I didn't have a really good father figure throughout my upbringing, because her second husband wasn't the nicest bloke either, and she wasn't, and that was a bit difficult. So my mother is a socialist. She's a government worker. She's devoted most of her life to working in the community and working for the community in disability work. So she cares deeply about people. She taught me to be a compassionate, caring man who believed in helping people. She believes in helping the community, and she raised me to be community orientated and to serve the community. So I tried to serve the community through presenting art and political content and commentary to incite people to think and to act in the best interests of the community. So that's what my mother taught me. She valued the arts, and she taught me about creativity. I struggled to learn to read and write when I was a kid, so she gave me extra mentoring and taught me to read and write better where the school system was failing. She had me keep a journal diary for many years. For about 5 or 6 years I had to write journal entries every night, and she taught me to read and write with The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit with Tolkien, which sparked my love of fantasy. So my mother has just published her first book about her domestic violence experience, and that's available online. So I think the book is called Impressions of Carly by Paula Bell Ellerkamp, which is a fiction based around her experience with my father. So my mother taught me many things. As I said, she taught me to be community orientated. She's always been passionate about serving the community and helping people. She also taught me, we're not a religious family, we're not Christians, but my mother's a big believer that Jesus was a champion and that he had a great message and that he was a good man with a good message of love and compassion. So my mother taught me to value the teachings of Jesus, not to see him as the Son of God or as a divine prophet, and not to associate with a church or a doctrine, but just to see Jesus as a good bloke who had a strong message. And she always says, I wish more people would live life like Jesus told them to live life, and live life like Jesus, because she feels he was a champion. My mother is a socialist. She's always said she believes in a socialist government, a government that serves the best interests of the people and supports people to live better lives. I think, she's a bit of a communist sympathiser. I'm not a communist, that's okay. So I see some problems with communism, but my mother's a socialist. She believes in a government that serves the best interests of everyone in the community, and she believes in welfare and disability support, and support for people who are struggling, and support for people, mental health support and rehabilitation, and many of the things which I believe in because she taught me to believe in those things. Now I question ideas myself, and I don't always conform to what my mother taught me, but we definitely see eye to eye on many things. And she's had a difficult life. She's on the autism spectrum like everyone in our family. We're all on the autism spectrum. We're a big Asperger's family. I'm going to talk about that in a future video. So she's very eccentric, and she hasn't had the best time getting along with people in her life, because we're different thinkers in my family. We're very Aspie, and our social skills aren't the best. So we're very keep to ourselves people, and we keep to ourselves, and sometimes we find it a bit hard to talk to normal people who don't have Asperger's and aren't on the autism spectrum. So as I said, my mother's a socialist. She's a domestic violence survivor. She's just published her first book, Impressions of Carly, about her experience with domestic violence. And my mother has done everything she can in my life to help me understand the world and to live a better life. She's always been a very supportive mother. Sometimes she helps me out with money when I'm struggling, which I really appreciate. So I really love my mother, and she's one of the biggest guiding lights in my life. And I think she's taught me a good value system, which is community orientated, which is about loving people and respecting people's humanity. I think my mother would make a good politician. She's certainly a good public servant, and she does good work in the community. And growing up, she worked in disability houses and care homes for people with disabilities, so I was always surrounded by people with very severe disability, so I grew up knowing not to judge people who were handicapped and not to judge people who had severe disability, but to love people and to help people live quality lives, because that's what my mother teaches. So good on my mother. She's a champion woman. She instilled in me very good values, which I will carry with me for the rest of my life. My mother also raised me, telling me about 1984 and teaching me, it was a book that she loved, and she taught me about the message of 1984, about conformity and about how people always blindly conform to what they're told to do, and not to blindly conform to what you're told to do, but to think for yourself and be an independent thinker and have your own views. So, my mother is largely responsible through teaching me about the message of 1984 for my views about conformity and not blindly conforming to the status quo of society, but standing for your own opinion and having your own independent thoughts. My mother, I think, as I recall, when I was young, my mother was briefly an English teacher, but she moved on from that work. But she's just an all-round champion, most charitable woman in the world, will do anything to help people, and always believes in looking for the best in people and serving the community and doing community work. And I wish more people were like her. So drop a comment in the comment section about your mother and what you think about your mother and what you think about what I've said about my dear mother, Paula.